So when I first met Ted, I was 18, and I'd been working in his team in OVARP, Structures 3, as a student placement, waiting to go up to university, exploring whether civil engineering, structural engineering was for me. And I'd seen Ted wandering around the office. He was always whistling. That's one thing I noticed. I was always impressed, actually, at OVARP. I didn't think work would be people having fun, but I always got the feeling they were really engaged. They were really interested in what they were doing, and that was very good for me. So when I'd finished my period of working with Ted at OVARP, I went off to study at university. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen next. In fact, I must admit, while I was at university in that first year, I was beginning to wonder whether I really wanted to be an engineer. But there was always, in the back of my mind, no, there was Ted. What I did there was fun. That was really interesting. And so lo and behold, I was completely bowled over. Just as I was thinking maybe engineering wasn't really for me, I got a call from Ian Liddell, said, well, we've left OVARP, we've all moved down to Bath, we've set up a firm called BuroHappold, and Ted is professor up at the university as well. How about a holiday job? So I paused for about a millisecond when I thought about it. And of course, I wanted a holiday job. Getting back together with those guys was probably going to be the one hope of refreshing my enthusiasm for engineering. And so off I went. And that summer, there I was in Bath with them. So BuroHappold started in Bath, 1st of May, 1976, from those early beginnings, those relationships that Ted had with people like Otto and Rolf Gutbrod, the great mates and colleagues that he'd found at OVARP working together, who became the founding partners with him in BuroHappold. What was really key, I probably didn't quite realize how important then, was that Ted had been able to bring with him a piece of a very large project that Rolf Gutbrod had brought to him and to OVARP, called Kokomas. Very large project, lots of complex roofs inspired by Otto thinking, minimal structures, and a piece of that came with Ted, and we were able to work on that as a first project. And the work that was coming in at that time, when it wasn't giant projects for the Middle East, they were actually really small projects. It was clearly quite slow to get a new practice like that off the ground. But very bright, talented engineers with good contacts. So slowly the work was coming in, and we were doing projects, beautiful projects like the Pink Floyd umbrellas, which they took on tour with them around the States. They used to deploy these little umbrellas every concert because the crowd loved seeing this mechanical blossoming of the flowers over the stage, even if it wasn't raining, which was why they were there. And of course, the first time it rained, the canvas didn't keep the water out because it hadn't been proved, it hadn't been made wet. So we got a sort of crisis moment. What do you do? These umbrellas don't work. And Ian, in his sardonic way, said, well, just throw them in the river, get them wet, and then they'll be fine. So the fibres expand and fill up the gaps, and everything was hunky-dory. But that was a really relatively small project. And as you can imagine, when you start up a business like this, that's what a lot of it is. Great for young people like me, so I kept going back. I went back for another summer's job, and then finally, when I graduated, of course, I immediately took up a job to come and join Ted and his partners down in Bath. I thought I was then destined to start designing projects, but Ted had other ideas. It was something like 2 weeks after I'd started in Bath. He came in and he said, well, I've just got a big grant. Wolfson Foundation have given me a whole load of money. I need you to come up to the university. I would like you to do a PhD. I would like you to be part of a research group that I'm going to set up into air-supported structures. The last thing at this stage I wanted to do to Ted was say no to another opportunity, so off I went up to the university. And what Ted had set up there was gathering together another one of his groups of his mates, the people that he enjoyed working with, who he felt would work together well. And we got together and we set up a kind of research institute, a small group of people looking into some of the thorny problems of membrane structures and especially air-supported structures. We built an air-supported structure up at the university, jumped up and down on it, tested it, prodded it, blew wind at it, but we started to understand better how air-supported structures could be well designed for the future. We saw this as a big future for membrane structures. It got me very excited. He sent me around Europe in my little Mini, staying at youth hostels on a real low budget and looking at dead bodies, as he put it. He said, if you're going to understand a subject, you have to do what doctors do and look at dead bodies. So I looked at lots of failed air houses and why they collapsed. One of the interesting things that all led to was a project called 58 North, which was a wonderful, ambitious project driven out of Canada with a Canadian group of architects, looking at covering a whole community of people who would move out to Alberta and encourage people to live in a better environment and go out to Alberta, where the government wanted to start extracting oil out of the oil shale, but they didn't know how to encourage people to go there and help it happen. So they needed engineers to show them how we could bring together all these different ideas of environmental engineering, improving the quality of life under a giant roof like this. So it moved us well outside of the comfort zone, if you like, of structurally engineering these giant buildings into understanding the environments inside these buildings, even the emotional impact that it might have on people. It ended up with some really good ideas, a really strong report, but unfortunately the political confusion over who owned the rights to the oil shale started to get in the way. So we never actually pulled it off, but a very interesting collaborative piece of design and a collaborative team that Ted pulled together, which I think really exemplifies the way Ted worked. No problem too complicated or unusual for him to put together the people to solve it.